This test is 100% not bullshit.
Hello and welcome to episode 461 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. I'm Ben Olson and with me is Nathan Fox. We're the co-founders of LSATdemon.com and the LSAT Demon Daily podcast. Be LSAT famous, share news and ask questions on our website, thinkinglsat.com. Coming up soon, we have a free class with Allah. This is Plateau Pulverizer for logical reasoning and reading comprehension. In other words, the entire test. So if you feel like you're hitting a plateau in any way, you should go to this class. All you need is a Demon free account. You can sign up for that at lsatdemon.com /free. That's going to be on July 20th at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Anything to add about that class?
No, it's just a very popular class that Allah teaches on Saturdays. She's been holding it down on Saturday mornings for quite a while for us. And people love it. She's got a very real way of interacting with students. And I think you'll probably learn a lot if you show up and go to that class.
Yeah.
And if you can't show up live, you can always watch the recording. So same thing, just get an LSAT Demon free account and you'll get, if you register for the class, you'll get an email with the video in it if you can't attend live.
Okay. Upcoming dates, we have July 23rd, 2024. That's the September 2024 LSAT registration deadline. The August LSAT starts on August 7th, just a couple weeks later. So it's summer, Nathan. June is over. Games are over.
June LSAT is done. It is summertime. I just got myself an e-bike. I'm delighted. I am going to spend my summer e-biking around. I'm pushing 50 years old, and the little electric assistance is much appreciated. I'm getting around, just on a normal bike. I could do it, but I'd be all sweaty, and it would keep me from going certain places. But the knowledge that I can turn on the pedal assist anytime I want to has been a game changer for me.
That's awesome. So I think I still have a little pride, if I'm being honest. There's something about me not wanting to buy one. But how does it work? Does it charge? Do you plug it in, or does it charge just from your motion? Like if you're going downhill?
It plugs it. You got to plug it in from the wall. It's
okay.
I guess there are ones that do the regenerative, on your brakes and stuff, but it's just not enough to actually provide, power. This thing's got extended range, and if you want to, you can just, that's why I would never buy it for a kid, because a kid would just use it as a motorcycle. There's a throttle and the kid would just be tooling around. I see kids all the time just tooling around town and they're not pedaling at all. I have enough pride that I'm no, I'm using it as a pedal assist thing, and I'm really going to only have it on when I'm going up a hill. And so it works great. I mean, you can, they're heavy as shit, so you can still get plenty of workout. If you want to work out on the bike, you can work out as much as you want. But I just kind of kick it in when I'm heading up a hill that I don't feel like huffing and puffing up. I have enough pride that I don't go zooming past normal cyclists when I'm on an uphill.
Fuck you.
Yeah, sucker, as you go up the hill. I don't do a lot of that, but city traffic and stuff, it is nice to know that you've got a little burst of speed whenever you need it. And otherwise I just kind of ride it like a normal bike.
Yeah.
What are you doing for the summertime?
Well, so we went to the beach a couple weekends ago, and I'm sure we're going again, and I'm sure we'll go again later in the summer. I like the beach, but not as much as my kids. So if they weren't asking to go, if my wife wasn't asking to go, I don't think it would happen, but I'll go with the crew and enjoy the water. Yeah.
What do you swim when you go to the beach? Yeah.
Yeah, I swim, and then I get out and I read, because my kids will go in the water and they will go for hours.
Yeah, never get out.
I look up from my book and it's wow, okay, you're still in the water I'm sure we have to reapply sunscreen at some point here. It's been like 3 hours, and then they still want to just keep going. So then it's like tag team. I'll head out. I'll go back to the house. Someone else take the helm here and watch these kids. But
Yeah.
hey, they like it.
Cool. What's on our agenda for today?
Yeah, well, we have an email here from Anonymous. The subject is LR drilling versus time sections of logical reasoning.
Why not both? I mean, I would do a mix of both. But
Yep.
anyway. Hi, Demon Team. I find that whenever I'm drilling LR, I rarely get a question wrong. But when I'm taking timed sections, I make stupid mistakes that I wouldn't usually make when I'm just drilling a question. I'm not sure if this is because I have an X amount of questions to do and it makes me rush or what. This is really beginning to frustrate me because I know I have the ability to score perfectly, but I'm continuously missing 4 or 5. I love the demon and the approach you guys have towards this bullshit test. I'm going to start with that last bit.
Okay.
This test is 100% not bullshit, and it will prevent you from excelling at the test if you think that the test itself is bullshit. The arguments on logical reasoning are bullshit. That's it, though. The reading comprehension is extremely straightforward. They give you a passage. It's not well written. It's convoluted. It's not like they really telegraph what they're telling you. You know, you got to dig in there, sink your teeth into it in order to really get the meaning of it. But then once you have the meaning of it, they just ask you a whole bunch of questions that basically say, what did it say in the passage? They're testing your ability as an attorney to understand the documents that are in the record. It's not bullshit at all. That's a very useful skill. It's a necessary skill for a lawyer. On logical reasoning, half the questions don't even have arguments, right? I mean, I don't know what it is roughly, right? Some of the questions don't have arguments.
Yeah, it's like 30%, something like that. Yep.
And those questions are also just reading comprehension questions in disguise, where they say a bunch of facts and then they ask you, well, okay, so which one of these must be true or must be false according to these facts? And again, that's just testing your ability to understand the record. The arguments on logical reasoning, they do have a lot of flawed, incomplete, bullshit arguments. And you'll learn that you can have fun and really kick ass on logical reasoning when you determine, you got to get the hang of it, which is what's your evidence? What's your conclusion? And let me tell you why that conclusion does not have to be true based on these facts. Your conclusions are bullshit. But that's the only thing. Well, and then I guess the wrong answers are bullshit, right?
Yeah, but all this stuff is by design, right? By design, it's bullshit.
Exactly.
So it's intentionally bullshit as opposed to a bullshit test that's just full of itself and not worthy of respect.
I don't want to pick on Anonymous too much about this because it was just a casual, one line in an email, and maybe Anonymous didn't really mean it that way.
Anonymous is just trying to be funny. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of students who come in with this idea that the test is bullshit. And I'm sure you recognize that, Ben. And I know that our other teachers at LSAT Demon recognize that there's this attitude that people have where it's like, well, no, this is just, the myth that the LSAT has nothing to do with law school, or like, well, thank God this test is nothing like or has nothing to do with law school.
Yeah, and I just had to get through this silly thing.
I beg to differ.
Yeah.
You will find that the stuff you learn on the LSAT, the intense reading that you learn, the straightforward logic of it, the literal nature of it is going to serve you really, really well on your law school exams. And and you will improve more on the test if you start to understand that the questions actually make perfect sense. That's the thing I don't want you to think. I don't want you to think that this test is arbitrary. I don't want you to think that it's a test of second bests, because it's really not. There's one right answer and there are 4 wrong answers. The wrong answers, sure, they're bullshit. They don't even have to make any sense. They can just be convoluted. They throw in some of the words from the argument and see if you'll be lazy and pick it.
Yeah.
But the right answer makes sense given the record that they gave you and the question that they asked you about that record. And you need to like really you need to learn that lesson. The earlier the better in your LSAT prep. Take this to heart, that the right answer, it's not just barely the best one and there was this other answer that could have been just as good, almost as good, and really it's just arbitrary. No, that is not how this test works. There are concrete reasons why each of the wrong answers are wrong, and the right answer is the only one that actually answers the question.
Yeah. And I want to double down on that because I think the most common manifestation of that is where students say something like, okay, I can see how the correct answer is A, but this is just the LSAT or the people who wrote the LSAT subjectively valuing something over something else. I
Right.
can definitely see why in another, context, answer
Yeah.
choice B would be just
Yeah.
as good, if not better.
No.
And it's like, no, no. If you're rationalizing an answer choice away like that, you need to stop and realize that you're almost certainly missing some assumption, either in the argument or some assumption you're actually making about the answer choice. And when that assumption is revealed to you, you're like, oh, that doesn't work. And now the
Yeah.
click has taken place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say there is that totally. There's also many answers are wrong for multiple reasons. I mean, I've had students like fighting me on, but isn't this part, but couldn't this part, because I had dismissed the answer based on something in
For
the first
something
half of
else.
the
Yeah.
answer,
Yeah. Yep.
right?
Yep.
But couldn't this mean that other thing and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, and then I'm having the conversation that you are about like, well, yeah, but I mean, that's a bit of a stretch, isn't it? You'd have to assume this other thing. And that doesn't
Yeah.
really quite make sense. But then it's like, not only that, but let's look at the other half of that answer choice, because the other half of the answer choice is even worse.
Yeah. Yep.
And students
Exactly.
like fall in love with one part of an answer that they think will make it click, instead of realizing that you need to be looking for reasons why answers are wrong. And the one answer that isn't wrong is the one that's right. There's 4 wrong answers there. And there's
Yeah.
one that the entirety of that answer choice makes sense. Now, there might
Yeah.
be a word there that if you were to twist it in a way, you could read it so that it would be wrong. But there's a way that you could read it so that it would be right. And the
Well,
4 wrong answers are impossible to read in such a way that they would be right.
totally. And even in that case, right, you're saying, oh, okay, well, we're assuming that that correct answer interprets the word in that way
Right.
versus another way. You're like, yeah, fair enough. You're making that assumption. But how big of an assumption is that? How unreasonable is that? And
Right.
compare that to the assumptions, usually multiple, that you have to make
Right.
the other wrong answer work. And it's
Totally.
like, hey, I want to say one more thing about that. Yesterday in class, there was a student very asking good questions, and she was focused on a wrong answer and focused on why, trying to understand why it was wrong. And she was focused, like you said, exactly on like 1 or 2 words. And I said, well, you see why that doesn't work? That doesn't work because of this. And she's like, oh, okay, it makes sense. And I'm like, I'm glad you understand that. And I don't want to beat up on you here, but there are 2 other bigger reasons that this answer is wrong. So if you walk away from this answer thinking you now understand why it's wrong because of this one minor issue, you're actually missing something much bigger, which would help you on wrong answers like this in the future.
Yeah.
And I explained what those 2 other reasons were. And it's like, there's a concrete example of a wrong answer that had at least 3 problems, some of them much bigger than others. And you're just missing 1, 2, 3 of those issues when you rationalize an answer away and just say, this is just the LSAT being itself and making assumptions that I don't make and a lot of other people don't make in the real world. No, you're missing
Totally.
something.
Totally. I think we've probably beat that issue to death, but we got to answer Anonymous's other question. I think it's fairly straightforward. Why do you think Anonymous is missing questions when doing timed sections, but not missing questions when drilling?
Yeah, Anonymous is still beholden to the clock. So
Yep.
Anonymous, you got to just keep practicing time sections, turn off the timer, and work on letting go of that timer. Sometimes that means halfway through the section, a quarter of the way through the section, you realize you're thinking about time again. That's okay. Redirect your focus to the question you're working on right now and
Yeah.
keep doing that until that just becomes second nature.
Yeah. Anonymous makes an unwarranted assumption. Anonymous says, I'm not sure if this is because I have an X amount of questions to do and it makes me rush or what. The assumption that you're making, Anonymous, is that you have to do X questions. You don't have to do X questions. And I guarantee that if you did X minus 2 questions, your score would improve. You got to do fewer questions, but make sure you're getting paid for the work you do. When you do that, the test will also get easier and you might find yourself finishing the section without even trying. But until you learn to click the clock, to turn the clock off and just ignore it, you're always going to be making casual mistakes. Questions that you wouldn't have missed in drilling because you're only doing one question at a time. You got to turn that one question at a time focus to the actual test.
What do you think about this idea? You always say that the official test is just like another practice test.
Yes.
What about the question you're doing in a time section is just like drilling?
Yeah, totally.
You're just doing that question and you don't care about any of the questions that are going to come next in drilling. You don't care about any of the questions that are going to come next in the section.
It's legal work. It's zeros and ones.
Yep.
Like, is this right or is it not? So every question that you do, you turn it from, it's either going to be a 0 or a 1. And you have to solve it to make sure you get that click, to make sure you see how, yep, okay, got to be this answer. Can't be any of these other answers. I feel good about it. Next.
Cool.
Next email from Jonah. I don't see a subject here.
Jonah writes, I've been studying for the LSAT for the past 3 months and with a cold diagnostic of 153 and recently a 161 on a timed practice test. I should be happier with myself, but feel there's more work to do as a score in the 170s is my target. I've been taking a quality over quantity approach, limiting drilling, review, practice tests to weekends, and have taken your advice regarding time, fixating on accuracy rather than time. Yeah, you look puzzled.
Jonah's only studying on the weekends?
Yeah, that's our quality over quantity approach. That doesn't make sense.
You've made pretty good progress, Jonah, if you've only been studying on the weekends. You've gone from a 153 to a 161 in 3 months of just weekends. 8 points in 3 months of just weekends. That's pretty damn good, actually. And those are a tough 3 points to cover. Tough 8 points to cover, by the way, because 153 to 161 is like the fat part of the curve where you basically have to get 2 more questions right to improve your score by 1 point. That might not be true anymore now that there's only 75 questions on the test instead of 100. But you really only get 1 point per right answer in the 120 to 130 and in the 170 to 180. Right? In the fatter part of the curve, it takes like 2 more right answers, I think, normally to get 1 more LSAT point.
Yeah.
And so you've increased your knowledge of the test a lot. I would say you've gone from like 50 questions correct to like 60 questions correct or more, 50 to 64 or something like that to get that 8 points of improvement. And that's pretty good if all you're doing is studying on the weekends. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe Jonah's coming to classes during the week or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not totally sure here. So at the very least, Jonah is focusing on quality over quantity and accuracy over time. He continues, both have been helpful. Recently, the issue I've noticed is my own tendency towards chasing a near perfect score. Yeah, you definitely don't want to be doing that, especially if you're scoring around a 161. You're not anywhere close to that yet. It is beginning to throw me off balance, resulting in lower accuracy. I have trouble deciphering whether this is the result of being too focused on perfection, trying to score higher too quickly, or a combination of the two. Any thoughts or suggestions?
1 high quality hour every day, not just weekends. if you want to make faster progress. I've never said anybody should just study on the weekends.
Yep.
I think that this needs to be, you got to think of it like fitness, and you got to just kind of get yourself to the gym most days.
And
Number two,
keep focusing on accuracy, right? Focusing on
yeah,
perfection now. Perfection is never good, even for
you're
people scoring in the high 170s.
yeah, you're not even anywhere close to that, Jonah. So you got to slow way down. You got to focus just only on accuracy. The improvement will happen if you just trust that process. But, yeah, if you are pushing for higher and higher scores and you're doing that really quickly and you haven't really been putting in the work that your competitors are putting in, then yeah, that's going to result in like you're trying to play a game that you don't really have. And then, yeah, your accuracy is going to fall and your scores are going to fall. And that's going to be really frustrating. I know how you are working diligently at it for the past 3 months, at least showing up on the weekends. But I would say do a little more during the week and yeah, just only focus on accuracy because you're nowhere near perfection.
Yeah. Last thing, Jonah, just to be clear here, you talked about drilling, review, and practice tests. Make sure you're doing time sections uh, way more than you're doing practice tests. I don't know if that's exactly what you meant, but
Yeah.
the
Thanks,
next one,
Jonah.
yeah, thanks, Jonah. Subject: help. I feel like a dog getting distracted by a butterfly.
Hi, Ben and Nathan. I've been studying for the LSAT consistently for about 3 months now. I took the June LSAT and felt about it since I did not spend enough time preparing for the games section since I knew it was getting removed. I regret this, but what is done is done. That is regrettable. Like, why the hell did you take the test when you knew you weren't prepared for it? That
Yeah.
our kind of a foundational idea here is don't take the test until your practice tests indicate that you're ready. And so, like, you knew that games were going away, but so you didn't really prepare for the games, but you took the test
With games?
while it
Yeah.
still had games. That's an odd decision to make. And it indicates that you might misunderstand our, you know, broader theory of why this test is easy and manageable. You can do practice tests until you're happy with your scores, then you take the official test. That's easy. You did something that is just like setting yourself up for failure, really.
Yeah. Well, look at the
Okay.
next sentence. I think there's a motivation going on here that's
What's done is
misguided.
done. But
Yeah.
yeah, okay. And sure enough, next paragraph. Now I am determined to kill the upcoming August LSAT. I have always enjoyed the reading comp and LR sections, but I find that I keep getting between -7 and -3 whenever I take practice sections for both of them. My issue is that as the time passes, I find myself starting to doubt myself as the questions and passages get more difficult, leading the bulk of my wrong answers to be at the end of the section. I can't seem to shut my negative self doubt up, and it leads to distraction and anxiety as the test goes on. Any advice on what I should do? Thanks, with a whole bunch of exclamation points. Love the demon, with a whole bunch of exclamation points. Best Anonymous.
Yeah. So
Wow.
a couple things here. One, the fact that you're trying to shoot for the August LSAT makes it totally unsurprising that you took the June LSAT. You have some urgency that is
Yep.
misplaced.
You're
Let
trying to
go of
force
that.
yourself into this application cycle and it's killing you. You
Yep.
would not have anxiety if you just did it our way. I love that you listen to the podcast. I thank you for writing in. I love that you love the demon. We welcome you. We want you to be successful as a student with us, but you have to give up on the idea of this application cycle, have to take the LSAT right now. That's your problem. That's why you have anxiety.
Totally. And people who have this anxiety and this urgency almost always also have that same anxiety in the section itself, which is exactly what you're doing. You're trying to get to the end. You're trying to do well on these harder questions as they appear at the end, but you don't need to worry about all that. All you need to worry about is the next question that you get, whatever that is.
I don't know who's pushing you to do this right now. If you've got a parent or an advisor of some sort who is pushing you to take the test right now, I hope that you'll have them listen to this podcast. That pressure is why you have anxiety. That pressure is why you're underperforming. You need to prepare better. Your practice tests are not going to lie. Your practice tests are going to tell you exactly what you should expect on the real test. And right now, you know that the scores aren't good enough. You know that that's not what you want. But you've decided in advance, I'm determined to kill the upcoming August LSAT. Not if your practice tests don't indicate that you're ready. Unfortunately, this test has registration deadlines that are way in advance of the actual test. We said earlier that the September registration is actually less than a month away now. July 23rd is the deadline for the September test. So if I didn't already know that you were registered for August, I'd be like, I don't think you're going to be ready for August. I mean, I still don't think you're going to be ready for August, but I'd be questioning whether you should even register for the September test. Because if you don't have practice test scores in the next few weeks before the, what is it again, July 23rd deadline, if
Yep.
you don't see practice test scores between now and July 23rd that you would be happy putting on your permanent record, then you have no business taking the September test, let alone the August test. And I know that that's a tough pill to swallow. I mean, people, that's really painful for people to hear. And I think, Ben, that we lose business, like we lose listeners and we lose students because we give them that bitter pill.
Mm-hmm.
But I also know that the people who actually swallow it end up thanking us for it later. The people who say, oh my God, the most important thing you guys ever told me was give up on this application cycle, stop trying to force myself into particular tests, focus on my practice test scores, and don't take the official test until I'm happy with my practice test scores. That advice was the single best bit of advice that we have given to lots of former satisfied students who tell us that. I don't know that there's anything else there for Anonymous.
Eric has a recommendation for meditation. It's your
Oh,
meditation. Eric says, consider meditation. Sina, maybe, said that some advice from one of Nathan's meditations helped her overcome bad feelings on the June test. You apparently said in this meditation, one sentence at a time, one question at a time, the LSAT is easy.
yes. And I believe that it is. If you read it carefully enough, the test just opens right up to you. They all make perfect sense at the end of the day. If you read them well enough, they just make perfect sense. The right answer is right. The four wrong answers are clearly wrong. The LSAT's easy if you let it be easy. But you're rushing into the August test, which is making you rush when you do your practice sections. And when you rush on the practice sections, you're rushing on the individual questions. And when you rush on the individual questions, you're rushing on the sentences within those questions. You're not reading it well enough. You're not really understanding what it's saying. You're missing all the shortcuts that are there. And they're there. These arguments are flawed, frequently flawed right off the bat. And if you catch the bullshit early, then the whole question just becomes a piece of cake. But you're speeding right past that shortcut sign because all you've got is this August LSAT in your head.
Mm-hmm.
And rushing to the August LSAT is like, I can tell you what that result is going to be. It's going to be a score that you're not happy with. Then you'll be back, trying to emergency prep for September or October or beyond. And instead of like always emergency prepping for the very next test, you should be relaxed prepping for your next practice test.
Shift your goal to learning.
Yeah,
Do a question and learn from it.
right. Thanks,
Great.
Anonymous. Next one's from Daniel. Subject is how to get better at specifically science passages on reading comprehension.
Daniel says, "Hi, Ben and Nathan. I'm reaching out for your recommendations on improving specific passage types on the reading comp section. I find myself struggling on passages that involve hard sciences. Semicolon. I have absolutely zero interest in science, find the passages incredibly boring, which I know is no excuse, and honestly find many of them quite challenging to understand as a result of my lack of interest and thus experience in science. Do you guys recommend I try to tackle specifically science-based reading comp passages if LSAT Demon even has that as an option?" It does, by the way. "And if not, what else do you recommend? What else do you recommend I do to improve my performance specifically on these types of passages? Thanks for all your help, Daniel."
Uh, get over it. If I were like in charge, if I had a magic wand and I could just make it happen, I don't think we would even tell people passage types in the demon. And it might be one of those things that we have to do because so many people would wonder why we don't do it if we didn't.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, Daniel, you're getting yourself in trouble early in these passages by recognizing them as science passages and then going, "Oh, no, no." And I'm not saying you're seeing the label even, that's a separate issue. I think Daniel's reading the first sentence of these passages and going, "Uh-oh, this is the hard sciences one."
I don't like science. I'm not interested in science. I don't have experience in science. So I'm not going to do well in this. Why engage and be interested?
Yeah. And you say, "I know it's no excuse that I find the passages boring." So you know that you're doing something wrong, but you're doing it anyway. And all I can tell you, Daniel, is that you're setting yourself up for failure by doing that. In my mind, the science passages are no different from the humanities passages, the legal passages, the economic or whatever other, I don't know what, I don't even care. I pay zero attention to passage type. That's not the point. This is a legal document that is material to my client's case. And I don't lose cases for my client. I win cases for my client. My client can be the biggest dumbass in the world. They can be as bored as they want. They can be as sloppy as they want. They pay me to be the one who pays attention and the one who actually understands the documents. And so, you have to force yourself, Daniel, to understand no matter what it is. I could remind you that they are never testing your your science knowledge. They don't care that it's in the record or it's not the right answer. So they're going to ask you questions that are just, what did it say in the record? And if you read that record, rolling your eyes and, "Oh boy, oh God, oh, these are just so incredibly boring. I have zero interest in science."
Hmm.
Okay, yeah, but do you have interest in being a good lawyer? Do you have interest in winning the case? Because there's going to be an attorney on the other side who understands this document. And if you can't force yourself to understand boring documents, then, uh, uh, you know, and I also don't want to hear, sometimes students are like, "Yeah, but I'm never going to read anything like I won't be doing any law related to this kind of thing." What would
These
you say to
issues
that?
come up. These issues come up. It also just stems. I think what it more fundamentally reflects is, do you see yourself as a professional student? I was trying to remember where
Right.
we got that phrase, but attorneys are professional students. You can give
Right.
them something and they don't give a fuck. They will learn it. They will say,
Right.
"Okay, I will understand it well enough to be the expert in the room on this precise issue." That doesn't mean you need to learn coding, but you need to learn how this particular line of code is coded so that when you're making an argument to the jury, you're not like, well, as the expert said, I don't really understand it, but you could see why the
Right.
programmer might have
Right.
broken the law here. No, they understand exactly why that line of code is illegal. This is a totally
Right.
random example, but the point is that you just take a domain and you don't back away because it's a domain that you're unfamiliar with.
And, that's not to say that you have to take every case. That's not to say that you certainly shouldn't take every case. But law school trains people to be generalists. I mean, when you're barred, you have the ability to take any case that any client will give you.
Yeah.
And the idea is that you're going to be able to learn the relevant law, learn the relevant facts, understand the underlying subject matter well enough to represent your client in this case. On the LSAT reading comprehension, they're not expecting you to know anything. They're just expecting you to be able to learn from a document. Anything more for Daniel?
No. Good luck, Daniel. Let us know if that helps.
Thank you, Daniel.
This next one is from Catherine. The subject is law school or new job? Question mark.
Hi, Ben and Nathan. I'm a big fan of the show and your no nonsense approach to advice. I'm a few years post undergrad and I was planning to apply to law school this cycle. I'm trying to decide if this is a good career move for me. I'm open to delaying a couple cycles. Love this. Real happy with where we're at so far. Yeah, Ben?
Yeah.
I've had a few jobs since graduating, and I'm considering returning to my old employer. The job aligns to my career interests, which is incident response and cyber. Cyber what?
Okay.
The pay is higher and the work has higher impact than my current job. However, I know from working with lawyers in my current job that I need a law degree to do the large scale policy work I'm interested in. This leaves a couple of questions. One, would law schools or law firms care about my working at a company for a little over a year to leave for a new job? Two, if I know I need a law degree, should I bite the bullet and go anyway? Any guidance you can provide would be greatly appreciated.
Okay. Question 1, would law schools care about you working at your current job, little over a year, and then leaving for a new job? No. You're as long as your career is progressing, that's great. 2, if I know I need a law degree, should I bite the bullet and go anyways? Maybe, but even if you apply this cycle, you're not going to be going to law school for another year, and you can always defer. So I would still take the job and pursue that regardless of whether you apply this cycle or next or later.
I agree. And by defer, you might be able to defer your admission to a school. But even if the school says no, you can't defer your admission, you'd have to reapply next cycle. You can always just say, cool,
Fine.
I'll reapply next cycle. Because when you reapply next cycle, you reapply to other schools and then other schools make you different offers and that's fine. You know your worth.
Yeah.
So
And
you're not afraid to walk away.
totally. And if you reapply to a school that you were admitted to, and for whatever reason you feel the need to write an addendum explaining why you're reapplying, you have the perfect reason. You
Yeah.
say, I had a great job opportunity that I couldn't turn down. And the schools are going to love that because they
Yeah.
want people who are going to get jobs when they leave law school. And you're just screaming at them indirectly, I'm someone who is desired in the marketplace.
Yeah. Without knowing Catherine's LSAT score, I have, without knowing Catherine's LSAT journey,
Yeah.
I have no idea whether you should apply this cycle. I
Yep.
mean, Catherine could be totally done with her LSAT and she could have gotten she could have studied hard and she could have improved a lot and she could have ended up with the best score she could possibly get. Or she might be like brand new novice, has never actually studied LSAT, is thinking, oh, well, I'm going to start prepping for the LSAT and apply this cycle. If that's you, Catherine, then hell no, you shouldn't apply this cycle because it's way too late in this cycle to decide that you're going to start LSAT prep now and also apply this cycle. Like starting in July, when you want to apply on September 1st, there are plenty of advisors out there who will tell you that that's fine, but you're not going to hear that at LSAT Demon. We would, by all means, want you to start prep sooner rather than later because we don't know how long it's going to take you. Also, your scores are good for at least 3 years once you're done.
Well,
So,
I do want to add one caveat there. Once you're pretty confident you want to go to law school, we don't want people
Oh, yeah.
wasting time prepping if they don't know,
No.
right? Which is
No,
kind of Catherine's situation. Yeah.
we talk people out of this all the time. if you're an undergrad and you're struggling to keep your grades up, we don't want you in LSAT Demon.
Yep.
We want you getting straight A's. If if you have the time in your schedule without sacrificing your grades, which Catherine's already long graduated, so Catherine does.
Yep.
If you're sure you want to go to law school eventually, then start your LSAT prep now. Catherine sounds like she for sure wants to go to law school, but I have no idea where she's at with her LSAT, so I can't give her any advice on whether she should apply this cycle. This job, though, sounds great, and I see no reason not to take it. It gives you a better walking away point. If you don't get into the schools you want to get into, you can always just say, nah, I'm actually killing it at this new job. Why don't I just wait another year or two or three?
Yep. Totally.
Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you.
Next one is from Anonymous. Subject, is a consultant worth it? Question mark.
Hi, Ben and Nathan. I'm just reaching out to see what thoughts you guys have about admissions consultants. I'm a splitter, 3.2 GPA, 177 LSAT, and my goal is to get into a T14 law school. Do you think a consultant would boost my chances at all? I'm a bit on the fence just because of how expensive they are. The ones I've talked to are all $5,000 to $10,000. Thank you for all that you do. My 177 wouldn't have been possible without you guys. Anonymous. Okay. It's hard for me to rationalize spending that much money. I think if you have the money, there are people who can be saved from saying really dumb things in their application.
Yeah, we do have an editor on staff. Leslie's great. She is increasingly also an expert on law school admissions as she's worked now through multiple cycles with hundreds of applicants, and she might be able to help you a lot. She's also working hard on our law school admissions course, which is coming up later this year. We're going to launch a like self-study version of it, and then we're going to launch a bigger version of it. She's already teaching admissions classes for LSAT Demon Live subscribers about once a month. Leslie has an admissions class. So live subscribers already know Leslie and really like her. She's available hourly if you just want her to look at your documents. If you're interested in the admissions course, you go to lsat.link/admissions and you can join a wait list. You'll get emails about the admissions course. 5 or 10 grand for a consultant. I got to think that they would boost your chances somewhat,
I
because
think,
otherwise,
yeah,
how do they justify charging 5 to 10 grand? If you have that kind of cash just laying around and you think that it'll smooth the process, then okay. I would probably exhaust maybe some more affordable options first,
yeah.
including paying Leslie for an hour or two of her time to look at your documents.
I would also add that Anonymous, you have a 177. So
Yeah,
this is where entertaining external expenses make sense. If
right.
someone has this same question and they're scoring a 170, but they could get a couple more points on the LSAT, that's just going to
Right.
move the needle so much more than a better looking application in so many
And I think
cases.
credible law school admissions consultants would agree with that.
Yeah.
That if you don't yet have your best LSAT, that it's kind of nuts to spend 5 or 10 grand on just your personal statement and your documents,
Yeah.
because those documents are just not going to be able to compete with a wrecking ball like a 177.
Yep.
The Anonymous already has the wrecking ball that's going to just bash your way in to some schools. But if you really are trying to go to top 14 for sure with a GPA as low as 3.2, you are getting in as a pretty extreme splitter at those schools. And I can see how your documents might matter a lot. And because you've already got the LSAT, then yeah, if you want to work with an admissions consultant and if that money isn't prohibitive, I guess it could help.
We have another email here from Anonymous. Subject, too many court dates and a 25-year-old GPA.
Ooh. Hello, Ben and Nathan. Thank you for taking my question. I'm overwhelmed thinking about my application for law school. I'm currently studying for the LSAT, but the application, especially character and fitness, seems more daunting than the test! Exclamation point. I work as a deputy legislative director slash committee clerk in the New York State Assembly, but my path here was not easy. I have been through drug court and had several arrests related to addiction, all misdemeanors. I have no clue how to locate the info about all my court dates, including drug court, and charges in several counties over many, many years. I've been clean for over 6 years and went back to school during the pandemic. I finished my undergrad with a 4.0. However, my associate GPA from 2001 is under a 3.0. Can you confirm that my final 4.0 GPA from the 2 years I spent finishing my undergrad won't be the GPA considered for law school? Yeah, we can confirm that. All of the grades that counted toward your degree, even if you took them in high school, are going to be counted on the LSAC calculations. So I think you need to plan on having pretty mediocre grades, although you can point to this increasing grade trend. You would definitely want to write an addendum that says, hey, I got a 4.0 in my
Yeah.
last 2 years after I went back.
Yeah, 4.0 for 2 years straight. It's going to be, you're going to be a diamond in the rough for a lot of schools. They're going to say, hey.
If they find you.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But they're only going to find you if you give them the right LSAT. That'll make them interested enough to overcome the bad overall GPA. Because if they see a great LSAT and a mid overall GPA, then they might actually look at your documents enough to realize, oh, wait a second, but it was a 4.0 for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So clearly this is somebody who got their shit together.
Yep.
They're not going to jump through those hoops, though, to see that if you didn't give them an LSAT that makes you worthy of consideration.
Totally.
But I think you've got to solve this character and fitness stuff first. How might I gather all the court info for my character and fitness? You got to pick up the damn phone. That's what you got to do.
Yep.
Pretty straightforward.
A court clerk.
Yes.
And start getting advice from them. And who should I talk to? And who do I call now? And where should I look?
Sit down in front of a computer during business hours and make a ton of phone calls. It's going to be a pain in the ass. I guarantee it's going to be a pain in the ass. And you're going to have to do it not just for law school applications, but you're going to have to do an even more rigorous version of it to qualify for the bar exam 4 years from now. So, I might start with a call to my state bar. I think you should call the New York State Bar and disclose everything to them, asking them, will any of this prohibit me from being barred in my state? Because maybe there's something in there that they're going to look at and they're going to go, ooh, yeah, that one's a deal breaker.
Yeah.
Now, you didn't say you have any felonies, so it seems kind of less likely that there's going to be any deal breaker in there. But if there are deal breakers, you want to know about them early. Don't wait for your law school application process. It seems like you're jumping the gun here on your applications. You said you're currently studying for the LSAT. Why are you also working on applications? And before you even study for the LSAT, I would sort out all this character and fitness stuff. I would at least call the bar.
See how they react.
If you have learned that you need to dig up all this documentation for the schools that you want to apply to, yeah, I would sit down and I would just make 10 phone calls. I would plan on, a lot of them won't answer. A lot of them will have to take a message. They'll never call you back. Yeah, but you're going to call them again tomorrow, and you're going to call them again the next day. You're going to act like a lawyer, like a professional person. Anything more for Anonymous?
No. Good luck and congrats on the 4.0. That's awesome.
That is awesome. And yeah, you're just going to have to jump through. These are only the beginning of the hoops that you're going to have to jump through. I mean, it's like, that's kind of like what law school is. Are you willing to jump through all these hoops? So this is the tip of the iceberg.
Hoop jumper. Yep. This next one is from Ella. The subject is LSAT King?
Yes. Oh, anyway. Ella says, I have a 3.99 GPA, worked at multiple law firms, have strong extracurriculars, and a good sense of what kind of law I want to do. However, I truly don't know if I'm capable of raising my current LSAT. My highest was a 158, and my diagnostic was a 152 in the next few months. Ugh, there it is again, Ben.
Yeah, this episode, it's like everybody's trying to rush. You have a diagnostic of a 152. That is a high diagnostic score. I don't know if you've heard that before, but it's high.
It's a really high diagnostic score.
Yeah, most people start in the 140s. My diagnostic was a 153. You have every reason to believe that you can actually do much better than your 158. You have a high GPA. You're familiar with the law. Not that familiarity matters, but you're familiar with the kind of thinking that lawyers tend to do. And there's no reason you can't just keep going. Your problem is that you're trying to hit a deadline.
Yep. Your problem is that you're trying to hit a deadline. Ella, her last sentence is, will a low LSAT really negate all my hard work in other areas? And the answer to that is unequivocally yes. Maybe negate is not quite the right word,
Undermine?
but it will significantly undermine.
Yeah.
Like a river flowing under the foundation of your house. It is bad times to show up with a bad LSAT. They're going to think that you just don't have the horsepower to excel, or that you don't have the work ethic to put in the time to improve your LSAT. When I see somebody with a 152 diagnostic, I feel like they are comfortably going to end up at 165.
Yeah.
And
comfortably.
I feel like they are an excellent bet, especially if they have a 3.99 GPA. You're a good student, Ella. Use your good student skills to be a good LSAT student. Study hard at the LSAT. Let go of the idea that it has to happen tomorrow. It does not have to happen right now. You do not have to apply this cycle. Maybe you can apply this cycle. You've already been working at it. You've already made some progress. I'm not saying you're not going to make a huge amount of progress in the next few months, but the harder you focus on making it happen right now, just the tougher it's going to be for it to actually happen. You got to get out of your own way and just let your good student come out, become a great LSAT student, and you will end up with a great LSAT score. I'm sure of it.
Totally. I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
I have no reason to doubt. Nothing Ella is saying here. There's no reason to doubt that Ella can be successful on this test. I mean, we expect people to improve by 10 points easily or more. So you haven't gotten that 10-point improvement yet, Ella, but I think you've probably got 15 or 20 points in you. And I would think that 170 is eventually well within reach for you. But we do have sometimes we have students who just, they want to lean on their LSAT and GPA. Right? They want to but I have such good work experience and I have such good extracurriculars and I have such good GPA. Sorry, did I say lean on LSAT and GPA? I meant lean on GPA and extracurriculars and work experience. And then they don't work hard enough at the LSAT.
They let themselves off the hook for the LSAT because it's not something that comes to people overnight and they're just hoping that they've done enough work.
There is no doing enough. Lawyers are over prepared, right? Successful lawyers are over prepared for every matter they enter into because who knows, things might not break your way. You've got to have an argument and you've got to have a backup argument and a backup to your backup argument. So if you just lean on, but my GPA is so strong and I've my work experience and my extracurriculars, and then you apply to law school with a 158, man, that makes your 3.99 sad. And we just don't want you to make that. It's a stellar GPA. Do not make that GPA sad. Get yourself your 170. You're a much better applicant than you think you are.
Totally.
This is somebody who could go to Harvard.
Yep.
And you're not going to Harvard with a 158 though, Ella. But we think you can get there. Just your problem, again, like whoever we were talking to above, is you're trying to force yourself into too short of a timeline.
Yeah. I mean, I like what you said, Nathan, about becoming a LSAT student, right? Just
Yeah.
like, and I just want to emphasize that, Ella, a little bit more. Shift your focus from when you're going to take the test officially to just learning every day. You're a good learner, right? That's why you have a
Yeah.
3.99. So
Yeah.
focus on learning. What can I learn today about the LSAT? What can I learn about the question I'm doing right now?
As I was yelling about earlier, the test makes perfect sense once you make sense of it.
Yep.
Ella, you're exactly the type of person who can really excel on this test because you're a good enough student that you can make yourself actually learn it and actually understand. The wrong answers that you're picking are clearly wrong, and you're just not seeing it right now. The right answers that you're not picking are clearly right, and you're just not seeing it right now. But I know that you have it in you to see it. Once you see it, you're going to be shocked at how much improvement you can make on this test. But you do have to stop forcing yourself into doing it on any particular timeline. If you just relax a little bit, keep working your law jobs, study, give me one high quality hour every day on the LSAT and ask good questions, like really dig in there and make sure that you're feeling those click. One question after another, you should be feeling a click that, oh, yeah, okay, I see it. Now that makes perfect sense. And now that wrong answer that I chose looks like garbage. I got it. Okay, that's going to pay dividends on future tests. So just keep going like that and let go of the idea of I have to take it in August or September or any other particular time.
Ella, please write back. Let us know. We're
Yeah, would
excited to
love an
hear where you
update
go.
from Ella. Yes.
Cool. Now let's go to word of the week.
This is coming to us from LSAT Demon student Owen via the Ask button. The word is concomitant.
Concomitant. Intent.
Concomitant.
Concomitant.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think it means with.
Yeah, associated with. I could definitely see that. Yeah, that
Like,
feels right.
Doesn't con mean with?
Yeah.
I mean, it does in Spanish, but I think that there's probably a Latin root there that con means with.
Yeah.
And it sounds like commitment, like with commitment, or I think concomitant means that it goes along with.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's look it up. So
Like a 170 LSAT and a 4.0 is concomitant with getting into top 14 law schools.
So the first definition is accompanying, especially in a subordinate or incidental way. So it's like with, but also has some. So it's like secondary or not on the same level.
LSAT and GPA maybe are not concomitant with law school admission because they're not really like subordinate or incidental at all.
Mm-hmm. They're central.
Yeah. Something that accompanies or is collaterally connected with something else is another definition. So yeah, I think it just means with. It's fairly simple word of the week.
Yeah. Well, great. Be LSAT famous. Please ask questions or share news with us on our website, thinkinglsat.com, or on our socials at LSAT Demon. If you have questions about the LSAT Demon, you can email help@lsatdemon.com. Check out our other podcast, LSAT Demon Daily. That was episode 461 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. Thanks all y'all for listening. Nice knowing you. Don't pay for law school.